Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to go over some information from Zion Oil and Gas, ticker symbol ZNOG. Talk about what happened to the stock price, what can potentially happen moving forward, and some things to look out for. Shout out to one of the followers on StockTwits who shared this and tagged me in it because I had not seen this, and I actually tried to look it up and I couldn't find it. So I appreciate her sharing that with me and kind of giving me a heads up. So we're going to dive into this. And then we are going to take a look at the charts and see what they're telling us. So it says consolidated condensed notes to the financial statements. As you know, on the charts they were showing, that they were supposed to have earnings, and we already knew that they wouldn't show earnings, but they'd give some type of information, some filings through the SEC, and this is one of them. And it says, so this is going to kind of be like a short recap, and then the very bottom is what we want to kind of focus on once we get to that point. So it says the initial phase of our recompletion project consisted of a Category 3 inspection of the drilling rig, rigging down from the MJ02 and moving the rig up over the MJ01 well. Stage 2 of the operation involved drilling out both the steel plugs along with the 625 meters of cement plugs and reconditioning the well bore to allow unhindered access to the selected zones for testing. After 6 years of inactivity in a well over 3 miles deep, the MJ01 well bore presented a challenging environment. The well bore appeared to have experienced elastic and partial collapse of the casing in some areas. This led to the bottom hole assembly becoming stuck over 4,000 meters from the surface. Attempts to overpull the BHA, the bottom hole assembly, were unsuccessful. The crew completed a back-off operation which left over 500 meters of the BHA remaining downhole. This is not an uncommon occurrence with oil and gas drilling operations, and the crew was unsuccessful in retrieving the remaining BHA with the tools they had on location. Another delay arose out of the logistical challenges we face. The ongoing conflict in the region has impacted shipping routes, the timely arrival of necessary equipment, and created travel difficulties for our rig crews. Our operations require specialized rig crews who are not available in Israel. An even further delay was created by many of our rig crew members reaching the limit of their work visas. This requires us to reset the visas, which is not a simple process, and it adds another layer of delay and complexity. Moreover, the recent changes to visa eligibility have further complicated the process, as Israel has changed their 90-day visa renewals from resetting it at the end of the year to resetting after 6 months after expiration. We're working with the Ministry of Interior on this issue. As a side note, the crew had to enter Israel under 90-day work visas and not 6-month visas in order to comply with the new labor law requirements in place at the time of the operation that commenced. In light of the combinations of downhole logistical and crew challenges as well as holidays, 1 year remembrance of October 7th, we temporarily paused activities during Q4 of 04, which we knew about. This was a necessary step to ensure the safety of our personnel and to ensure proper engineering and tools are brought to location to avoid lengthy delays. Waiting for additional tools should be required once the job resumes. With the necessary tools and renewed visas for our crews, we resumed operations in Q1 of 2025. This is, of course, subject to realities of the present geopolitical environment. The conflict in Israel, while not directly impacted our operations on a daily basis, creates uncertainties that could affect our schedule at any time. Zion's rig crew arrived in Israel in 2025 and completed the critical maintenance and preparatory work. The rig, which was safely warm stacked in September 04, underwent necessary checks for maintenance, including fluid changes, lubrication and greasing, and mechanical, electrical, and safety audits to ensure peak functionality. The rig crew drilled out the temporary plug at approximately 1100 meters and set a permanent plug at the deeper part of the well, allowing for isolation of targeted zones for testing. Perforation and stimulation operations were successfully completed, with gas observed at surface during early flowback. On June 10th, we completed the flowback operations of the MJ01 well and have since temporarily shut it in and demobilized our crew. The last our crew left the country just hours before the 12-day war with Iran. We analyzed the initial gas composition data, which confirmed that our targeted perforation and stimulation procedures were successful. Gas reached the surface and shows characteristics consistent with the productive reservoir. Well, that's interesting. Okay, we knew about that though from the meeting. Here's the kicker. At this point, we are considering potential programs to move forward. The first is to sidetrack the well using our rig. The second is to deploy coiled tubing. We knew this from the meeting that they had, the annual meeting. Both approaches are being evaluated in the terms of technical feasibility and overall cost. All equipment, material, and personnel for the sidetracked operation will be contracted by the end of Q4 2025, with operations beginning in Q1 2026. You read that right. You read that right. Operations beginning in Q1 of 2026. So, just to put it into perspective, we're in the third quarter, which began July 1st. Okay, this runs through September 30th. Okay, so then from October all the way through December is Q4. All right, and then so you got to think about the quarter, like they say Q1 of 2026. Well, then what does that entail for Q1 2026? That's January through March. January through March. Holy cow. So you're telling me from now to potentially February or March of next year that all equipment, material, and personnel are for the sidetrack operation will be contracted by the end of Q4. They were going to contract it. Operations beginning in 2026 Q1. You don't know if that's going to be January, February, mid-March, end of March. That's a lot of uncertainty. Okay, so if you're wondering why the stock took a dump, okay, we've seen this game before. All right, so let's take a look at the charts and let's see what they're telling us. All right, guys, take a look at Zion Oil and Gas, ticker symbol ZNOG. As you see, their earnings right here, $0. Surprise, surprise. Okay, I told you there would be nothing there. All right, so we hit a high of about 28 cents. We dumped down all the way down and touched 20 cents and bounced off of that. And now we're finding some support right here around the $23, $24 level. A lot of volume right here. People dumping shares, stop losses hitting, things of that nature. And so good to see a little pop up here. However, there's some things that you want to keep an eye out for. So remember, one of my last videos I talked about it would not be a bad idea to throw a stop loss on at that point. And for reasons like this, of if something happens where they come out and they say we have a delay, we have uncertainty, we're not starting until this date, blah 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 blah. I mean, that's definitely something to spook the market, and have people dump shares. I'm not saying it's going to zero, okay, but let's take a look at the overall technical side of things and just some things to kind of look out for. So it's currently at about 25 cents, so really good recovery. All right, fell down from 20 cents, bopped up to 25 cents. If it gets below 23 again, you're going to keep your eye on 20, then 17.5. If it gets below 17.5, that means that the Golden Cross breakout indicator is going to most likely reverse, and instead of it being in a bullish uptrend, then you can potentially see some more downside and it start kind of just trickling its way down. Remember, when Zion typically falls or starts selling off, you'll have like an initial spike down, and then it'll kind of like, I'd use the term die a slow death. It's like slowly just sliding its way down. And when it moves up, it typically moves up fairly, not necessarily aggressive, but pretty slow and steady and clean, kind of like what you've seen here. Nice little leg up, nice little leg up here, nice little slow and steady move to the upside. But keep in mind, okay, now that's potential to happen to come down, but at the time being, all right, you're still in an uptrend. If it holds here, especially if it holds at this level right here at about 23.5, 25, and it starts consolidating, you still have potential to come up and get through that 28-cent mark. All right, and then and have the uptrend continue. All right, and so just keep that in mind. What can potentially make the stock go down more? Obviously, an update from them coming out saying things about delays would be something like a PR or a John Brown email. I know someone's like, we need a John Brown email. No, you do not need a John Brown email right now, because typically in these situations, he comes out and says something, and it's completely just like this hidden cryptic message. And sometimes people get excited, sometimes people get spooked. So I don't know, like I'm so iffy about it right now. Like, I'm not sure if I would think an email potentially in this situation may hurt it more than help it, unless he comes out and says something that's actually positive. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. So watch these levels, okay? Watch these levels, and just kind of, be mindful of that. So, and just be reminded of, if you got in on the swing, especially if you got in down here, like 7.5. Some people got in at like 3 cents, 5 cents, and you're in profit. There's nothing wrong with taking profits off the table and waiting it out and seeing if it falls down and comes back down. You can always rinse and repeat. If you're in it for the long haul, then you're probably not that worried about it. You're just like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to buy some more whenever it falls down, or if it falls. However, like I said, this may not be that big of a deal. Like everything in the market's an overreaction to the upside or the downside, and this just could be an overreaction to the downside, because keep in mind, currently you're still in a longer term uptrend. All right, so this could just be, one more little stair step here, and we start recovering, consolidate, and bust through 28 and keep moving. That's a potentially realistic scenario as well. So give it until the end of the week. By Friday, it should, in my opinion, it should tell us in what direction it wants to go. And especially if we don't hear anything from them, just let it the market will probably just they'll probably just let the market play out. I highly doubt that ZNOG says anything at this point. They put out what they needed to put out through the SEC, and in their eyes, they're going to be like, that's good enough. That's all I need to do, and that's just how they roll. Okay, so anywho, we'll see what happens. But let me know your comments below. Other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.